Lustboy still is doing the same stuff. We're just putting Lustboy on stage because those misunderstandings don't really happen with Lustboy.
Well, it's the third week of NALCS. I'm joined right now by Parth from TSM with coverage presented by OmniSlash to talk a little bit about what's been going on with TSM. So Parth, this week we saw a pretty big coaching change happen. Did you guys actually officially address it at all, or was it just sort of like rumored throughout? Because maybe I missed the official announcement.
Sure. We officially announced it after. So what really happened was Riot currently doesn't recognize multiple coaches in the database, and Ssong and Lustboy are both still with us. But in order for Lustboy to go on stage, he has to be registered, and Ssong can't be. So when people saw that Ssong wasn't on the database for us, they were all speculating what's happening, what's going on. And the real thing is just, if you saw some of the players' interviews and just behind the scenes, Ssong is really smart about the game and all the strategy and everything, but one thing, the way he does pick and ban is very intuitive. And so what happened oftentimes is him and the players wouldn't really be on the same page, and he wouldn't necessarily pick up on the nuances of what Ssong were saying to them or they were saying to Ssong. And so that nuances really led to a lot of miscommunication on when he would go on stage and draft. At the end of after we came back and talked about it, the players were actually very confused about our priorities and why we were picking certain things. And that communication is something that we really wanted to address. We've been working on it with Ssong for a fair bit, but it is summer, and if we want that to change, I think it's just better to make that shift and just put Lustboy on stage instead of Ssong.
Sure. So what can you elaborate a little bit on the issues that you had? Were people picking the wrong champion? Because as somebody, I know you've been on stage a ton, you talk to these players, you have an idea of what those comms are like. Yep. I think for a lot of people standing on the outside, it's kind of hard to understand, is it that he's telling them to pick a different champion and they're picking the wrong champion? Is it, how does that fold out?
Yeah, so, I don't know the full details of what happened, but it's more when you kind of sit down and have discussions about picks, order, priority, there's so many scenarios that you have to go through. And Ssong isn't one who has a big system of explaining, this is what I'm going to do when this happens and this happens. So his idea of doing things is just getting a general idea from the players and then making his own specific plan on that, right? And so when that general idea, consensus is traded, those information, there's things lost in translation between the players in the song. And it's more I don't know, an example of a nuance that might not necessarily apply, but could happen is Ssong might be what things are bad or good against this champion, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that the players want to play that champion. It's just, so small things like that kind of add up to making big mistakes on stage. So we're trying to address and fix it, and Ssong has every responsibility still on stage, and Ssong, or not on stage, outside of stage, and Lustboy still is doing the same stuff. We're just putting Lustboy on stage because those misunderstandings don't really happen with Lustboy.
So is Ssong the head coach of TSM? Because I think that's what a lot of people's impressions were. Does he maintain that title?
I'm not sure about, I'm not sure if we ever addressed him as the head coach. Yeah. We just have Ssong, who leads the strategic direction and strategic coach, and Lustboy, who was the assistant coach, but that's pretty much it.
Okay. So Lustboy maintains his assistant coach role.
I think we have to give him a bigger role now. So I guess they're both sharing the position now. Sure. They just have different responsibilities in terms of what they're doing.
Okay. So co-head coaches.
I guess. Okay. We are trying to work with Riot, so to add both coaches onto the database, because we think it's to the point where I think every team has multiple coaches on their staff, and yeah, there are titles for who's head coach, who's this, and who's that, but everyone kind of ends up doing everything, and so everyone just sort of shares all the responsibility. Sure. So when it was me and Curry last split, right? I had a very specific set of responsibilities that I needed to do, and so did Curry. And so I'm not really sure what the official titles that Riot is gonna call them, but they call them head coach. So yeah, I don't know.
I want to get more into the team's performance in a second, but while we're still on the topic of coaches and kind of looping into the performance of the team, is there a chance that you or Andy could make more of an appearance in the team? Because a lot of people know, obviously, you left and then you came back in the past when the team wasn't hitting the standards that it needed to hit. A lot of people know that Andy oftentimes is known to come in and like make a bunch of decisions, help lead the team. Is there any chance that that is an option that is maybe on the table if things continue to be an issue throughout the rest of the split?
I mean, TSM is always like Andy's baby, and I only joined TSM just because I enjoy working with this team first and foremost. And so if there are any major problems that continue to happen, then that might be an option. But right now we're trying to do everything in-house, and Andy, outside of being like the moral support, hasn't really stepped in or done anything.
How do you feel about the team's performance right now? Especially given, disappointing playoffs, but I don't feel they're not like leading the charge right now. Obviously coming off a win just now against Cloud9, but they're not number one in the league. How do you feel about TSM's position and sort of the performance of the team overall?
Sure. I definitely think that with us trying to work with both Mike and John and this coaching shift, we're going to be a lot more slower in terms of how we ramp up towards playoffs. That being said, I think a lot of the issues that we had last week, we addressed this week. So I do think that we are equal or slightly better than our record right now, and I think we can only look to improve from now on.
Yeah. Trying to think if there is anything else, as obviously that game has wrapped up because we just finished stuff. But I think I do have to wrap up because the game ended. Is there anything that you would say? Oh, actually, I do want to talk to you. Academy streams. You guys just did an Academy stream this week for the first time. Is this something that you guys plan on doing frequently? Also, I think maybe you are one of the first teams to. A lot of teams are not using their players. You guys are using the players, which I expect might be hard because of scrim block situations at that time. Yeah. So maybe you can just give me your take and TSM strategy there.
Sure. So we're one of the few teams, or maybe the only team, who isn't streaming Academy every week. We do think that it's super valuable, but in terms of just the resources that you have to put in and the manpower it takes, we want the streams that we do to be engaging, entertaining, and up to the quality that sort of Riot has it. We don't feel like half-assing it is really like the way to go, which is why we're looking at key points in the season or times where it's like good for us to do those streams. So for example, we just recently did a stream where it was Bjergsen and Hanser casting, and I think that the reception was really good, and that's like a format we might continue with. And obviously we'll work around scrims, and I don't think it should be too much of a commitment if we don't do it too much. So I think overall we want to create an experience for like the audience who's watching that's really good, but it's not something that I feel that we can sustain for the entire split.
Do you feel like other teams are half-assing it?
I mean, I'm not sure if they're half-assing it, but Cloud9 specifically, though, has like a very cool stream setup. They've like gone all in on that. And this is, I mean, of course, a learning opportunity for us too. Like we actually, when we did our stream, we looked at the stuff Cloud9 was doing, right and wrong. And I do think that next split into spring, if this sort of format continues, more teams will ramp up. And I think even TSM will try to do like a format where it is weekly. But this is like a good like learning opportunity as a split for us.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for the interview. Is there anything that you want to say to any of the TSM fans out there?
I know it's been a little rough. This is the first split. We're coming off a split where we lost before the finals for the first time in TSM history. But I really, really think that all of the players and the staff is working as hard and as efficiently as possible. I hope you continue to support them, and we can only go up from here.
Thank you so much for the interview, Parth. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things esports right here on my YouTube channel. Thanks so much to OmniSlash for the support. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about something personal, a personal event that happened in my life recently. A lot of you might know that I moved out of my old place and into a new place, and that's because my family has expanded. That's right, I am actually supporting someone else now. And so you know that when OmniSlash supports this, when you hit up my Twitch channel with a Twitch Prime, when you subscribe to this, when that car drives by, that all that stuff is going to supporting not just me, but also Kobe, who lives with me now. You've all heard the rumors about Caster Pay. I got to take care of him. He expects me to pay all the rent, to feed him, to basically do everything. He just sort of plays video games, and then I just have to do everything else. Anyway, so your support helps me take care of my family being Kobe.